Hi everybody, I want to welcome you to another episode of Trade Secrets by Tripletote. Today I have a very special guest and I want to do something just a little different. I really want to not fully introduce this guest. I mean, her name's Tiffany Young. I do want to introduce her, but I don't want you to tell you what she does yet. I want to do a slow build because she has had an amazing career in marketing, in management, in operations, handling people, which you always doing, in certain positions that you've held. So I really want to do a slow build to get you guys to really dial into her story and the things that she's been able to accomplish. She's from the Hartford area, so I'm like a super big fan of her high accomplishments. She represents a lot of people with what she's done. Tiffany, how's it going?
Oh, it's going well. Excited to be here today.
Great. Now, for people that don't know, what area are you from? What city?
I am from Bloomfield, the orange and the blue.
Yes. Now, in high school, we go there. What type of student were you? Were you like a really good student? Were you in clubs?
Sure, absolutely not.
Really?
Yes. Contrary to what most might believe today. No, as a high school student, I was probably bare minimum average. I did not like school, so I did what it took, to not have to repeat a grade, to not have to go to summer school. But it was just kind of riding through. I definitely was not as focused as I should have been.
No, I definitely understand. I mean, my report card is a ski slope. It goes up one semester, and I'm like, that's good enough. Back down to the average C. Oh, no, I'm going to fail. Back up. And then what felt bad was that the last downslope fell when I was supposed to graduate. Oh. So then not only was I on the downside of a mountain, I was also threatened with not graduating for this English credit that I needed. I was like, this was the wrong time to be on a downslope.
Yes, sir.
I was feeling myself too much. Now, from high school, where did you go from there? What college or?
Sure. For undergraduate, I went to Norfolk State University.
All right.
That green and that gold.
That's right.
HBCU proud.
I'm so proud of HBCUs. I went to Clark Atlanta, so I can relate.
Yes.
Now what was your experience like? Okay, now you go from Hartford, which is a predominantly black city, Bloomfield areas too, a little bit more mixed, but still we consider that Hartford. And then you go to a place where the entire university is full of people look just like you, all there for the same thing, to get more education, to get out into the world. How did that feel for you?
It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. First of all, let me say that I came to college and to the campus with biases of my own and with my own expectations. But when I got there, to see so many people that looked like me, that were on a mission in life, they had dreams, they had goals, they knew, what was next for them. And just to see that was such an inspiration to me. And I don't know that I really had that much exposure in my childhood to that. My father definitely was an educated man, Morehouse man.
Morehouse, right next door. I already know.
Yes. And I mean, very established in his career, but I'm probably talking more about my peers. And being able to see that. It was a life-changing experience for me. And I'll be honest, my first semester there, we talk about that transition from high school to college. Yeah, that didn't happen so well for me.
I agree.
That was like, what did they call it? Academic probation. Yeah, so I remember I came home and my parents sat me down. My father said to me, and I remember this clearly, he said to me, you need to let somebody know if college is not for you. And literally by the second semester of my freshman year, I was on the dean's list. Because I was like, I'm not leaving here. This is, woo. Yeah, it was...
when you
It was
go,
amazing.
when you go from high school to college, first of all, you're in shock. Even if, like me, I was in a summer program when I went to college, and especially when I went down south. But you need like a practice semester that doesn't cost a thing because you can't waste nobody's money. But you need like a practice semester just to get used to the culture before you even drop in academics, because you're just in shock of especially at HBCU.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh my God, you're just so excited about.
I never thought of it like that, but you're right. That would be extremely helpful. And now, I have children of my own now, too, in high school who are getting ready to go to college and looking at college. And it's interesting that you say that. And I'm like, that might be something to think about. I know, and not to skip the subject, but I know in this day and age, a lot of students actually go to community colleges and then transfer out to 4-year, and that's becoming common.
That's right.
I think, at least back in my day, it wasn't so common. It was like, no, you just go straight to 4 years. But what I'm finding, especially in talking to the parents, is it gives them that cushion that they need to, number one, mature.
That's right.
And get focused and being able to make that transition. So it's definitely something to think about.
No, it's different. In this generation, they're so good. Like, they're so much ahead, because when you went to school, probably when I went to school, you just got airdropped into a different culture of people. But with social media, people are meeting all types of people.
Right, that's
so when
true.
you went to HBCU and you found out, whether it's black professors or me moving to Atlanta, which is like a black city, you seeing like black CPAs, black lawyers, black doctors. But with social media now, the exposure to information and different types of people is a great thing. But part of our culture shock was seeing so many different people that was like, oh my God, I didn't know this type of black person really existed. I heard the things, and I know you know what you see on TV, but you just find out that from a ground level, these people that are going to be architects, that are going to be again, CPAs, lawyers, doctors, dentists, they're in school for it right now. You're like, yo, I'm in school with these people right now, so they represent a population when we graduate that I'm gonna be able to recall. Like, I remember it seemed like there was none of them out there, because up here you don't have many black dentists that you go to or things like that.
Correct.
It's better now, but during our time, you didn't have anybody that was really a legitimate professional. Most times was not a minority, but that's changed, which is great.
Yes, absolutely.
So what was your major in college?
Theater arts.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Theater arts. That's really, honestly, what probably kept me in college, because remember in high school, I was just a mediocre student. But my gifts and my talents and really my passion is theater arts, and it really kept me not only grounded, but focused.
That's right.
And I had an amazing advisor who has since passed away, who was a mentor and advisor, and basically my college dad. While I was away, and through the theater department, not only was I able to grow personally and certainly academically as well, but so much growth took place in me in regards to just developing myself and being able to develop relationships and appreciation and maturation of different cultures.
That's right.
And different people. I was blessed in that I was able to do a lot of traveling through being a theater major, certainly throughout the state and the States, but I performed in Edinburgh, Scotland.
Wow.
He took me to London, England. Those are places I had obviously never been, and I might not have ever been exposed to that, especially in regards to theater. If I had not become a theater major and really given it all I had, I literally was in the theater till like 12, 1 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
Every day. But I was that dedicated, and I loved the craft, and I could pour myself into the craft. I didn't, for me, like, that was an outlet. Yeah. So anything I was going through, and my father had a heart transplant as well right before I went to college. So, that was something that I really didn't know how to deal with emotionally. And I remember being able to deal with that emotionally through developing these characters. Because I didn't know, sometimes, especially in African American culture, we're not taught necessarily where to put those feelings, where to put those emotions.
Or to seek therapy. So you create.
What therapy? Especially back then. So for me, that's what that became. It was a catharsis moments, if you will. And that was my therapy.
Yeah, I sometimes describe it like when you have traumas. A lot of times you may not experience an impact on you directly from trauma, but you may witness things, or you may have things that happen to friends that you're just so affected by that sometimes I describe it as like there's this other person, like almost like a sidecar of yourself you jump into to protect you from the hit. And then sometimes you get back in, you get back in the main seat, and then sometimes it's just easier to stay in the sidecar, which is still you, and just take off from there because you have to create these characters, these shells to protect you from, because we be experiencing a lot of things so young, and then when you look at the blessings of your kids or my kids coming up, that you're like, man, they don't even know, they're so blessed to not have to deal with that.
Absolutely.
They're so blessed not to deal with those things, but I understand exactly what you mean. Now, what about the conditioning that being a theater arts major did for you? Like just that rigor of being able to stay out to 12 at night working on a craft. How does that help you now that you don't have to stay anywhere to 12 o'clock, but you could if you needed to?
Oh, goodness. Now. I'm old now. I'm like, I need a nap. But you know what? So what I realized is that that taught me that going into situations, you have to manage your expectations, right? So my expectation, if we're doing a theater production, can't be that you're going to have the same level of commitment and passion that I have or I bring to the table. And then there becomes this resentment, right? Because that's not your issue, that's my issue.
That's right.
It is my issue because I have not learned to manage my expectations with that. So it taught me that probably first and foremost. But it also taught me that in anything you want to be successful in, you have to put in the grind, or you have to be able to put in the time and the effort. And obviously, as you go through life, you understand what time management looks like. And there's a lot of things on your plate the older you get and the more responsibilities you take on, and being able to prioritize that and certainly balance that. But there is definitely a level of effort and sometimes exceeding what's around you in terms of effort, in terms of time, in order to get the results that you want. So.
Isn't it amazing how easier things get when you really, outside of being a manager of people, of course, you manage people and you have annual reviews. Yeah. So you're managing them, and there's a requirement for them to have jobs, right? But then you get into this place where you yourself know that you can 100% control yourself, and then you realize that's all I need to control.
Right. So you know what I call that? Emotional intelligence, right? And so let me just say I'm not perfect.
Understood.
And so sometimes, even now when we're talking about in the professional realm, I sometimes have to walk away from the situation and examine myself and make sure that I'm responding or dealing with a situation intelligibly when it comes to my emotions. Because at the end of the day, I am human, right?
That's right.
And all humans bring baggage, bias, baggage, expectations to the table, and sometimes we allow that to affect how we make decisions rather than what's ahead of us or what we see in front of us, which should be data. Right? Because we're human, we're not computers, and so I absolutely still work on that. Sometimes that is a challenge, but I think the good thing and the positive thing about that is being able to recognize that and say, oh, let me pull away from this, right? And also understanding how people sometimes respond to me, especially as a woman, and sometimes as a woman of color, in business, because again, everybody has bias, right? And your bias is solely put together based on your experience, whether it's images that you've seen or it's your past experience. And sometimes we project that on another person, but that's your issue, not mine. So I have to receive that or not receive that.
Now, how good did it feel when you were traveling through Europe and doing what you love to do in these different countries, where you yourself came face to face with the bias and your experience destroyed it? Like the elation, when you check yourself, nobody knows you're checking yourself, right? But then you can just feel like I just opened up a whole nother chapter right now. And I think that, when we understand like how you've gone through organizations and risen inside organizations, that when you tell me the stories about dealing with people and their biases, I realized that every level that you've achieved in yourself, you probably could match that same type of achievement at work. Like when you realize, oh, I just need to check myself, you rise at work. Work gets easier, so to speak, at least from the stress point of view. It gets a little bit easier when you understand those things. So that sounds great.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, we probably put more pressure on ourselves than what we need, right? And I think personally that can carry over in our professional world, meaning the pressure.
That's right.
Sometimes that we put on ourselves. Yeah. And I mean, it is what it is, because I think at the end of the day, I would hope that everybody wants to be successful, but we define what success is to each of us, right? Because it's a very individual and a very personal thing. But you're right. And I think for me, I just always try to keep the door open with learning, because I want to continually be a student of life and experiences. And I've learned, and this has certainly helped me professionally, that everything does not have to be taken personally.
Yes. Understood. After returning back after school, where did you go then, and what did you do after that? What was like your first job out of college?
Oh, gosh. Oh, my first job out of college, I was teaching. I had to think about that for a minute.
Really?
Yeah.
Here? You were teaching here?
Yeah. So I came back and I went into substitute teaching, then went into long-term teaching, and I said, oh, let me go get my certification, because I never thought I would teach. So I did that and ended up teaching. I taught at Hartford High School for a little bit, probably for about a year. Wait on the nice. So... and then I decided this might not be for me. But let me say, I made some amazing relationships. One of my mentee, who I call her a bonus daughter to this day, right now, I met her as a student, at Hartford High School. And so, I mean, my experience there was absolutely amazing. But it brought me to the point where I realized, I need to do something different, right? I want to make a bigger impact. So I had a degree in English as well. I probably should have backed that up. But so I was teaching English. Okay. All right, business communication, but my passion was still theater. And I thought to myself, well, how can I make a difference in the lives of young people through theater arts? So long story short, fast forward, I ended up creating this organization, this program, Alternative Creative Theater Ubiquity Program. So I use theater to help young people be able to express themselves. We talked about that before. And so this particular population that I ended up getting a lot of contracts for were young people who at the time they would call at risk, and that's not necessarily a politically correct term now, right? But they were, the kids that weren't necessarily succeeding in school, and some of the population was young adults who had also been through the legal system. And my approach was to bring theater to them, because everybody has a story, right? But we're not always given the tools, the vessels, the vehicle to be able to tell that story. And I wanted theater and performing arts to be that vessel, because I felt like once you tell your story, then you can release some things, including emotion. And remember, we're dealing with a time like, therapy, what? And not that I proclaim to, certainly be a therapist, but I know what theater did for me. And I wanted other people to be able to experience that, and especially young people. And I still love making an impact, on young people, but I wanted to find a way that I felt that I personally could be most impactful. And so from there, I developed that program, and that became my business, and I worked doing that for years, and then I would still teach, here and there.
Now, didn't you find it transformative to yourself also, where, first of all, for some of the people from maybe that generation growing up, for them to even take a theater thing, which could be considered soft, right?
Okay.
For them to even do it. I know it's not soft, but from the outside.
I've never heard that before until now, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you were acting, it was like, what are you doing? What are you doing on the weekends? No, but for you to get my point is for you to get kids from a hardened situation, sometimes most times could be all the time, to take on this imaginary role. So they have to open up. They have to even let their guard down to be able to open up, and you were able to do that for them. Yeah. Didn't it also affect you? I know it did, but how did it even affect you that you had this one student who was either shy or really closed off, and you see them open it up for themselves, whatever that percentage of change was for them.
Yes.
And you be like, I remember when this person came here, they wouldn't even do X. Now they doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, it's an absolutely amazing feeling. But it all starts with trust, right? Because you have to be able to build trust. And a lot of these kids, were not able to trust, or at least their past experience up until that point did not allow them to trust because of different circumstances, right? That they were in. So there were a lot of layers, right? And it's a matter of how you get through those layers, because how I get through the layers with you might be very different than your neighbor.
That's right.
And you talked a little bit about that, and the result might be very different as well. So a lot of it started with the visuals, right? Like, what does this remind you of, and being able to write that. But then what happens to the student who necessarily can't translate that into writing, right? And so then what does that look like? And it's a matter of building the process and building trust throughout the process.
Understood. Now, as you ran your own organization, helping kids from the community, then you built onto your career even more. What did you do after that?
So after my business, I took a personal route. I got married and had children. I was an at-home mom.
Nice.
I was an at-home mom for quite a while. And so I did that. I ended up getting divorced and then got thrust back into career mode. And so I decided to certainly go back to school, finish up what I had started. I had started grad school. And then never finished because of the whole, family thing or what have you. So I kind of went through that personal stage, and really focused on being a wife and a mother, and then came back into my career, and hence here I am now. And I became very focused because I became my own competition at that point. And of course, looking at my kids, and especially my girls, because I always want them to know that they too can be successful. You have to define what your success is, but there's nothing or any situation that should be able to keep you down or keep you back from anything that you want to accomplish, no matter what you go through, personally or professionally. So that for me was also a big drive, because I needed my children to see that, Ma, she can make it.
Yeah. Now, sometimes when people are doing both, they're being a mom at home and you're taking care of more than one child, raising more than one child, then you have this career path where you're accelerating through, challenging yourself to rise, which is obviously one of the reasons why you had such a successful career. Did you feel, because a lot of, especially moms, do a guilt of were you able to successfully?
Absolutely. Woo. Okay, so let's take a minute and talk about the guilt.
This is important.
It is, because it's real. It's absolutely real. So when I went back to work, first of all, we have to understand that kids are a lot more resilient than we give them credit for. But literally, I was crying. I was crying because of the transition, because I felt like, I'm failing my kids. I'm not there because dinner wasn't ready at 2:00. Well, you know what? When I stepped out into the real world, I realized that that's not always the case, right? And there's nothing wrong with being a working mom, especially a single mom, because otherwise we're not going to stay over our head at the end of the day. But no, I did, and I was working a lot. When I first went back to work, I was working a whole lot, and my mom, she definitely helped and stuff, especially in the evening. But it was difficult. But I worked excuse my expression, I worked my behind off for that first year, and then I had to go back to the table and understand the value that I brought to the position that I was in, and decided what equity looked like, right? Because we all talk about diversity, inclusion, and equity, but what does that look like? And equity sometimes is equal sacrifice, right? But my sacrifice might look a whole lot different than your sacrifice. So if my sacrifice has been, time away from my kids, time away from my household, that still is my sacrifice, right? But I'm putting sweat and equity into my job. Whereas a colleague of mine, that sacrifice might look like time on the job, but they might have a wife at home who's taking care of the household and things of that sort, or even a colleague that might be younger that is a single person, right? And so what are they giving up? That might be dating life and looking towards getting married, but that still is sweat equity, right? It still is on the table, and it is sacrifice. But when we talk about equity, we have to understand that sacrifices look different. If every time I'm out in the community and somebody's approaching me about the organization that I'm with, then technically I am still working. At the end of the day. And it's not about $1 and a cent or anything of that sort, but we have to begin looking at that. And so when I began to realize that, I began to understand what value I was bringing, right? And so then I can go at the negotiating table. And I think this is very important, especially for professionals, especially for women professionals, right? To know what you bring to the table and to be able to negotiate that in regards to what your time looks like. Because at the end of the day, nobody cares that you're a single mother. Now, that is the truth. Nobody cares that, laundry has built up for the week. Nobody cares that you had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to cook dinner for that night. They don't care. At the end of the day, they do not care. It's your problem. It's not their problem. But you know what you bring to the table.
Isn't that an awesome, self-realization, also self-awareness? Because you got to have enough self-awareness to be able to feel confident enough to go and command what you should be getting in whatever package you're putting together or whatever promotion you're going after. You got to have that self-awareness. And that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier, is that you've been to places and you met people who, at least from afar, seem to have an advantage because of where they come from versus where you come from, or who they are demographically versus who you are demographically. Then you get there, i.e. going overseas, you're like, hold on, they got lazy people too. You know what I mean? I'm serious, but we have these locked in, and again, not anymore because of social media, because the world is opened up, which is the best. But once you realize that you can compete with the best of them, and literally you did, then when you're having these other conversations, it makes it even easier because you know that you can navigate any environment that you want to put yourself into. And that's the confidence I think that your story brings to people, is that, listen, you can start from anywhere, navigate yourself to anywhere else you want to be, but you're going to have to make sacrifices. You're going to have to work hard. But I think because you're doing things that you love to do, and because you have that underlining, very hard reminder that I got kids to feed, it makes it like going to work is nothing compared to the leverage you have on yourself. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, absolutely. That is absolutely true. And my kids definitely, they keep me grounded. So I always feel like my kids don't care. Like whatever accolades that I'm getting, they, whatever awards, they're just like, yeah, okay, what's for dinner? So that helps, because you go out into this world and, you think you're somebody. And then you come home and it's like, nah, not really, not so much. So yes, it definitely keeps me grounded, which is very helpful. But another thing I wanted to touch on is that I think, I know, that a big part of being successful, and again, I can't emphasize enough, success is defined individually.
I agree.
Because I'm nowhere near where I want to be. But I have understood the importance of being thankful of where I've come, so I can appreciate where I am, so that I can understand where I'm going.
So I have a question for you on that particular note. When you're achieving things, do you feel the biggest burst when you set out to achieve it? Like when you go, I got this idea. Or as you're achieving it, I'm killing it right now. Or do you feel the biggest burst of energy after you hit the goal? Because that is a very interesting set of emotions. Because sometimes people have to look back and be like, I did do that, but I'm already onto this, so can't really celebrate that.
Yeah, so I think that's probably more me. I think sometimes in hindsight, I'm like, yeah, okay, I did that, right? Because sometimes we get nervous to celebrate, in the process. In the process, number one. But also, I I had to go through, and I talked about this in the article as well, I had to go through learning that self-validation is foremost important. So I think sometimes, when we get to a goal and we're like, oh, are you going to clap for me? Is there applause for me?
Yeah.
Are they going to say, oh, I'm so proud of you? Did you do great? And you look for that. You look for that, whether it's from your colleagues, from whatever, your boss, your family, and you don't receive that. And then we kind of take that in and think that, well, maybe we're not good enough. Maybe that was not, a big deal, because we're looking for validation for somebody else. So I say that to you to say that my biggest lesson, definitely in all of that, was to be able to validate myself along the way. And it's not necessarily that it has to be loud, right?
Understood.
And so it might be a quiet moment where I might say, yeah, dang, girl, you did that. Yes. It might be that little, in the corner, in the closet or something, but it's, and I just kind of limit the public, plot of myself. But I think that it's important, because if nobody else celebrates you, it's okay. Celebrate yourself however you are going to celebrate yourself. And I also had to realize that it's always somebody looking at you, looking up to you, right? Whether you know it or you not or not. So I think, especially as women, we have a responsibility. As professionals, we have a responsibility to make sure that our actions, and again, nobody's perfect, and that's not at all what I'm saying. But that our actions also include giving back, right? Not just looking back, but also giving back in whatever form that looks like, in making sure that we're helping each other along the way.
Oh yeah.
And I'll say this too. I have met some amazing women in my career. I would say in the last couple of years, amazing women that inspire me. So when you talk about success, I'm like, now that's success. I don't know, about me. But those are the type of people you always want to surround yourself with, and people who are always going to encourage you.
That's right.
And I think that's important. So the kids keep you grounded, at least keep me grounded. And I think your circle of friends and colleagues and sisters and brothers in the world, I'm not talking about biologically, are what keep you uplifted. And that should be your circle that always keeps you inspired and encouraged.
Now, for our listeners, readers, and viewers out there, what is your current position? What is your current situation? What company you're with? Everything. Let's unveil it finally after the story of you.
Okay, sure. So my current position is Executive Director of Hartford Yard Goats Foundation.
And what is foundation? Does that mean that is the entire Hartford Yard Goats, or is that a particular branch? Just for clarity.
Sure. So that's the nonprofit side.
Understood.
The 501c3 of the organization.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. So what are your responsibilities? Are you making sure that they stay in contact with the community, that they actually get back to the community and tickets and finances and resources?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So resources, absolutely. We do some sponsorships. So that is the financial feeding back in the community, making sure that we are continuing to partner and understand that partnerships aren't always financial. A lot of times we think that, but that is to being able to leverage, especially, some of our small businesses around, and looking at how we can partner together to build programs that can better impact the community, whether it's our youth or our community, at whole. And of course, I go out on behalf of the organization quite a bit and do some public speaking. I talk a lot about community engagement, community impact, social responsibility, corporate social responsibility, and things of that sort.
I think that with anything, first of all, with any new construction, any new addition to a city, especially in a downtown area, there's going to be reasonable and then unreasonable skepticism about how it's going to turn out. But one thing I'll say, just from a person who was probably as much of a regular citizen as could be when it comes to understanding what's being developed, I think the way that the Yard Goats in the stadium have landed has everybody satisfied in a way. Like, people go to the games, they love it. Like, I'm not just saying that. Like, people go to the games and they love it. And the things that you guys do inside the game to boost the crowd, they love it. And sometimes when something comes to Hartford, you think, yeah, but nobody's going to support that. People love the Yard Goats. They do.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
You know what I mean? I mean, just is like from regular person's perspective, and full disclosure, haven't been to a Yard Goats game myself. Okay. But. And that's what I'm saying, even more so I know it's something that's real, because even a person who hasn't gone before, just know that it exists, is getting feedback from even my coworkers or anything like that. They know that, hey, if I want a good time, or if we're going to do a team building event, let's go there. And then we'll do a little tailgating before somewhere else, and then we'll show up there and have fun. So the experiences there that you guys have put together has definitely been well received by the public. Even if it doesn't get back to you, you may just get the inbox of complaints, but no, people really love it. They really love the experience you guys provide. Now, what's on the horizon for you? What's next? What's things you're looking forward to personally and with the Yard Goats?
Oh, wow. Well, so let's talk about Yard Goats first. Okay. And which I'm going to actually invite you as my guest on April 15th.
Thank you.
Yes, that's Jackie Robinson Day across the nation. But on that particular day, we are also celebrating the centennial celebration of Negro League Baseball.
Wow.
So we are very excited about that. So we're going to have some special guests. One being the great-grandson of the baseball legend Josh Gibson.
Wow.
Will be there speaking. We're going to have some on-field presentation. We're definitely going to have some entertainment. You're going to hear the Negro National Anthem that day.
That's great.
Yes.
That's great.
So we're planning to really have a good time, and I'm really hoping and inviting all of the community to be able to come out that day, on any day, but especially on April 15th.
That's going to be great.
Yes, for Jackie Robinson Day, again, when we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Negro League, which is, I feel like, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's amazing. Sometimes I'm trying to think, like, we know the monumental event of Obama becoming president, just the first black president. But when you get a chance to peek into all the steps, the different advances, different sacrifices, especially sacrifices that led up to these things, and you'd be like, hold up, 100 years?
Yeah.
Already?
Yeah. It's it's absolutely amazing. I did a media interview about the upcoming date. And, one of the things I talk about, because, we have to be honest, right? We have to be honest about our history. But one of the reasons that the Negro Leagues were even formed is because we weren't allowed into what we now call MLB.
That's right.
And so, it is a celebration, but we also have to understand what the history is.
That's right.
And I think that's why it's so important that we celebrate that, because, first of all, 100 years only comes around one time.
Listen, 100 years ago.
And I probably won't be here for the second 100.
Yeah, 100 years ago.
Yeah, and what better place to celebrate this in Hartford? I'm sure they're doing it, of course, across the nation, but, nobody can do it quite like Hartford.
Agreed.
So, again, it's just, it's very, very exciting. And there's going to be exhibits there, really showing the history. Again, all types of entertainment.
That's going to be good.
Big Reg from Hot 93.7, I invited him to be the on-field host. And we're going to, so this is very important. I am also looking to honor hometown heroes around Hartford, which are our black business owners on that day as well.
That's going to be a huge event. You guys need to support that event. That's going to be awesome. And for you personally, what are you looking forward to?
Well, so I have really begun with my motivational speaking, which I'm very, very thrilled about. And I've recently just launched From Pain to Purpose, Tiffany Young From Pain to Purpose, where I deal with working through your pain in order to discover your purpose.
Wow.
And that can mean a lot of things.
Yeah.
To a lot of people. So sometimes I'm asked to come in and talk about it on a professional basis, right? Figuring out where you are in your career, what is your purpose? And then also on a personal level as well. Because as you mentioned earlier, we all go through trauma.
That's right.
Your trauma might be different than mine, right? And it's painful, but it's life. And understanding that what you're going through or what you've gone through absolutely has a purpose, and you have to define that purpose, because it might not be about you. It might be about somebody else.
Exactly. I think that one thing that I'm learning more and more is that we really discount the power of the individual, meaning that as an individual, you have your set of proclivities, you have things you're good at, you have your natural makeup of you that's different from everybody else. When you put the different variables, when they put together, it's an equation that makes you different from anybody else. I know people say we're all unique, and that becomes, they say it so much it just becomes cliche. But no, you really are a combination of a little bit where you come from, the family you grew up with, what your proclivities are, what your gifts are. Are you acknowledging those gifts? Are you conforming? Like, you're a combination of those things, and they're specific to you. So I know you stress over and over again as we were talking that it is defined by you. And the thing is, once you align with that combination of things that benefit you, the rest gets easy. But is that finding that path is the journey, like finding that path, finding that combination.
And it's a continual journey.
Yes.
And we have to be okay with that.
Yeah. There is, and that's why I asked you about the gold thing, because you could win $1 million tomorrow, and either you're gonna try to go for $2 million, or you may lose it and try to get back up to the $1 million. But as long as you're breathing, you're gonna be on some type of journey, and you might as well be aware of that and have some sort of control of that. But it's never gonna end, and that's why people become ultra successful and still keep wanting more. That's why you've had, as far as I can count, 3 to 4 careers, right? And you still keep going, and you still have things on the horizon, because if you're here, you're going to keep going as long as you're here.
Absolutely.
And there is no end, and that's the best part about it. I want to thank you for coming on the podcast today. I think that your contribution to the podcast today has been really translating your personal journey, literal journey, right, into different segments that people can digest, and one thing they may not be able to relate to, but another thing they're definitely going to be able to relate to. So I really appreciate you bringing value to the audience in that way. Is there anything else that you want to let people know about that the Yard Goats are doing, or that you have coming up that we can just give them early notice on?
Well, as far as the Yard Goats, again, I just want to re-emphasize April 15th, which is Jackie Robinson Day, where we will be celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Negro League. So we invite all of the community out to come. It's going to be an amazing night with entertainment, education, and it's going to be a phenomenal experience. On a personal level, I just want to remind everybody that no matter what you're going through, that pain in your life that you're going through, you shall get to your purpose.
Now, where can they find more information about you and that initiative, specifically Pain to Purpose? Is there a website? Is there social media we can connect with?
There is a website. It's under construction, so I'll get back to you on it.
Yeah, and by the time this air, maybe like a month, it'll probably be up. So still get it.
But there are social media platforms. On Facebook, it's From Pain to Purpose. You can go to Tiffany Young From Pain to Purpose, and which you can book me also on that page.
And I'll link it in the descriptions.
Okay, perfect. And of course, on Instagram as well, hashtag #Pain2Purpose. Perfect.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Trade Secrets by Tripletote. And Tiffany, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
All right, have a great day.